Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the performance of the TEQ LR Zamasu and Goku Black unit, or Goku Rose unit, and this is the LR unit, so it's a pretty good unit overall. I think a lot of people really enjoyed how this unit's EZA. I think they were pretty solid, and with the I want to say with the advent of obviously Dokkan kind of like bringing out the new future celebration, I thought it'd be pretty cool to see them before they kind of get a whole bunch of buffs to their team, because I think it could be pretty cool overall. Now obviously Zamasu and Rose are pretty interesting units, so they raise attack for 1 turn, cause mega colossal damage to the enemy, and raise their defense by 30% for 6 turns on their super, which I think is pretty big. They then also obviously have the recovery of 15% HP and defense of 50% at the start of turn. They have 100% attack when performing a super attack. They guard all attacks for 3 turns, which is pretty big, obviously, and then they also have that ability to build up ki. So they get 1 ki and attack and defense of 30% up to 120% in total for every attack received, which is, at the end of the day, I don't want to say crucial, but it is pretty good when it comes to gauging how well a unit does. I think overall it's a very good kind of kit. I think it's solid. I think it has a very good kind of presence. I think it's a very a kit that manages to do a lot with what it has. It may not necessarily be the craziest kit. It's not the most broken one, but I think especially if you maintain their stacks, they are a very good unit. I think at the end of the day, they are an incredibly solid unit that just has a very good kind of ability to control the game when they are in a good situation. Of course, units can always be set in position whereby they may not perform the best, and these guys, it's very much largely dependent on if you manage to maintain that 18 key defensive stacks, because it is it is something that is important. Units tend to have this situation whereby they are really solid when they have that defensive stack built up, and I think Rose, Zamasu and Goku Black are kind of in the same position. Now, their hardest part of the fight is in the beginning, because they're facing an N-type unit. Things get predominantly easier for them as they face an AGL type unit, which I think is pretty clutch. And then of course they also have that final physical phase that I don't want to say everyone struggles with, but it's a difficult one for a lot of people. It's not the easiest in terms of stages. The physical phase is pretty hectic. It can be very difficult for a lot of units. It's not so easy to just shake things off there. So I think that is something you have to accept, and they're gonna need a high threshold, a high barrier to even be good in that scenario. There's tons of I guess units that can't handle the phase, because there's a lot of requirements. It's not just about being able to tank his supers or being able to tank his normals. You have to tank the consistent pressure of the AoEs, and that consistent pressure of the AoEs is really kind of what, I don't want to say what does it, but it really is kind of what puts the unit out, I want to say. It's can they handle that consistent pressure of the constant struggle of surviving those AoEs? And I think that's where things are rough, to a certain extent. I think they can handle it. I think if you manage their 18 key attacks, they can definitely get to that point. Linking them up with Zamasu is probably more on the difficult side than some might imagine, because obviously Zamasu is in type, so him facing the physical final phase is not necessarily the best combination, but they share a decent number of links. Now what's going to be important is whether you are able to link level these guys. Link leveling these guys is a pretty big deal. As units, let's just say they have, I don't want to say a requirement, but they have a very good link set. Big bad bosses, pretty big, fear and faith, solid. And so for me, there's definitely that question of like, are you catering to them? Are you not catering to them? If you've got them with big bad bosses, kind of beefed up, then they do tend to be a lot more impressive looking. Big bad bosses is a pretty crucial link set, especially for extreme units, because of that capability, because of that, like, okay, we are now, how can I say, we are now like having a much better start of turn passive. That's really the big part of big bad bosses. It's the start of turn effect it has more than anything, because chances are you'll proc big bad bosses in like a hard event, in like a red zone. You'll proc a big bad bosses pretty much with ease. I don't think there's any situation where you don't proc big bad bosses. And I think, looking at things, big bad bosses does play quite a large role in determining how far you kind of get with Rose Zamasu. I just think, not that they're bad without big bad bosses active. It's just that I don't think they operate at the same level. I do think there's a bit of a limitation in regards to their performance without it, and although not necessarily a bad unit, I do think you see a considerable difference between a link leveled one and a non-link leveled one. Now the healing does come in clutch, and I think overall, if you can maintain their stacks, then they can look really, really good. I just think that there is a question, to be kind of considered on how important is maintaining those stacks and handling those stacks for them as a unit. I think it is a lot more important than probably you can even consider. I think it's a situation whereby as units they thrive off of that maintaining of that stack, because they don't have a lot else. Once the guard falls away, they exist essentially almost entirely on the principle of raw defense, and as we all know, raw defense has its limitations. Without damage reduction, without guard, without evasion, raw defense has to be very high, and for super attacks, raw defense has to be in the millions, to realistically be like a good option for units. And I think that's something you have to consider. They do require a bit of tender love and care to realistically become a very, very, very solid unit. Yeah, that's not to say that they're bad. That's not to say that, just because they need a bit of love and care, that they're not units that are exceptional. But I think, especially when you look at their team, you're trying to run a Future Saga Extreme team, I think there's limitations there that do speak volumes. And I think you need to have a little bit more about them to realistically, have them be a main headlining leader in this physical phase. With that being said, I still think they're pretty good. They're a nice option, and they are a lot of fun to use. There's not like a negative or a downside to using them. I think they're a lot of fun, and I think, yeah, realistically speaking, okay, maybe they, are a unit that has a little bit of limitations, but I think at the end of the day, their performance in endgame content is good. I think they're consistent. They're gonna hopefully get some big linking partners at the worldwide download celebration, which will help to keep them relevant. And yeah, I think overall they still have one of the better EZAs. There's not a lot you have to do to get them to function. There's not a lot you have to, drop down to get them to be this crucial, performing unit. There's not this big kind of question mark you have to raise about them to really get them to be this, lead unit. I think they're just very simple. Their mechanics are very simple. Have, big bad bosses, have it active, and you're basically done. And I think that's something everyone can kind of consider being good. I think, yeah, at the end of the day, that is something you do have to accept. And I think it's a good sign for them. Now, obviously, you just saw them kind of face tank 600k with a Whis active, and for most people, that's probably not a good sign. But for me, it's not a big issue. You gotta remember we weren't catering to them. We didn't have their range of abilities that we usually want them to have. We didn't have them have, like this, everything we wanted them to have. We weren't maintaining stacks properly. We weren't realistically catering to them outright. So yeah, but overall, I think they're good. I think they're great solid option, and I do enjoy using them. I just think, yeah, if you are looking maybe considering using them long term, I definitely think it's worth link leveling, especially if you're going to bring them consistently into hard content. I think at the end of the day, that's always something that's good, and I think, the way you want to use them, you probably want to warrant link leveling them. If you're someone who's a die-hard fan who wants to use them as a unit and use their team, then link leveling won't be such a big issue to you. Really shouldn't be such a big issue to you and how you operate, as a just person who enjoys using the Goku Black kind of team. So yeah, but I would say beyond that, not too much. I think overall they're a lot of fun to use. I enjoyed using them and I had a great time. And yeah, I think they're a good unit. I just think there's a little bit of tender love and care you got to give to them to really have them kind of be this lead focal point for this level of hard content. It's not to say that they can't be good, it's not to say that they're terrible. It's literally just to say that you maybe need to put in a bit more effort to kind of facilitate them being a top choice. But with that being said, I think they're great. I really enjoyed using them, and I had a ton of fun doing this run. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's definitely a group of units that are fun, awesome, and at the end of the day, I think they're going to get some good buffs. But that's it for me. See you next time. Bye.